Someone needs to get Harry one of his crabby little t-shirts that says, put down the shovel. Because Harry, as we all know, visited his father, King Charles, for the first time in forever, and as per usual, showed his true colors, with leaks and petulant statements incessantly to the press in the weeks following. Weeks this went on. Any press at all following his visit would have been problematic, quite frankly, on its own. There should have been zero engagement with the press. But the statements and the lengths that Harold went to, a running commentary on his visit, was the worst possible choice, aside from giving an actual play-by-play. He just can't seem to help himself. He's paranoid, and he wants exclusively positive coverage, something he will never get as long as he's still in a negative space, one where he complains and blames and reacts like he's done just now. Like, he will never get what he wants doing what he's been doing. And you'd think he'd figure that out by now, but he still, I guess, has not. The best response to press articles and rumors and things like that, whether they're true or not, is literally no response at all. That is the best response, 100% of the time, in somebody in Harry's type of situation. Because the minute he allows himself to start reacting to news and press and trying to change how he's perceived, he starts digging himself deeper, not only with his image and with the press, but in his relationship with King Charles, proving he cannot be discreet. It's ridiculous. He respects no one's privacy, apparently not even his own privacy. So before we dig deeper into this, let's just put it into context here. There is zero benefit for King Charles or his team to leak any of the stuff that has come out into the press. It's clear that it's coming from Camp Sussex, whether that be Harry or Meghan behind Harry's back. But there is no incentive or benefit or reason for anyone on King Charles's side to put any of this stuff out because it's silly, petty little things that don't really matter. And so it's obvious. So we can just set this aside. It's clearly a Sussex problem. Look at the track record. Has King Charles ever been a leaky, press-heavy type of guy? No, absolutely not. He's the opposite. He's very ambivalent towards press. He doesn't appear to even care about the press, really. Like, he doesn't seem like he's ever clapping back to anything. Like, this is all Sussex stuff. Like, it's just weird to even say out loud, King Charles doesn't clap back at things in the press. Because, duh. This is all Harry and Meghan's pattern of behavior. So it's obvious that all these leaks were coming from Harry's side. He tried to blame men in gray suits. He tried to blame King Charles's team and Palisades and stuff like that, as usual. But that theory holds no water. It's obviously Harry or someone in Harry's house. Also, when you think about it from the context of potential gains, as I said, King Charles gains nothing from this type of stuff being out in the news. Harry, however, has everything to gain. He needs people to view him in a royal context. He needs people to believe that he's doing what's right and being nice to King Charles. And he needs to deflect the rumors that Harry is asking for money or opportunity or other favors from King Charles. Because even Harry knows that that would look bad. So he needs the conversation to go into a different direction. And he needs to gain some reputational points through this. That is why he's done all these leaks. And as I said, the pattern matters here. Harry is the only one in the equation who spends so much time speaking with the press at all, and leaking things, and commenting on things, and contacting the press. Harry is the most press-involved guy to ever be in the royal family orbit. It doesn't matter what he says. He's a hypocrite. He engages with the press obsessively. No one else in the royal family sphere does. No one. As I said, King Charles seems completely unbothered by the press. You get the sense that he doesn't even look at it. He doesn't even care about it. It's like not even on his radar, which makes sense. He has much, much bigger things to think about than tabloids. Harry, on the other hand, well, he needs a job. He needs better things to do with his time, clearly, because he does actually have time to look at tabloids. I don't even have time to look at tabloids. Okay? What is Harry doing with his life? arguing about tabloids. Okay, it's pathetic. It's sad. Anyway, let's take a little look at what has been said, this little back and forth that Harry has completely manufactured all on his own and engaged the press with. The initial meeting was a private tea at Clarence's house on September 10, lasting about an hour, which was their first encounter since February 2024, which was very, very brief. It was the first significant amount of time in well over a year. After the meeting, during the Guardian interview, Harry simply said, "Yes, he's great, thank you," when asked how his father was doing. That would have been fine. If he stopped there, no problems. Pretty standard answer, no further prying. It's done, it's over. Just kind of like niceties. That's okay. In interviews after the meeting, he said that the focus really has to be on my dad over the coming year, which was a bit of a step too far, like putting a toe too far at that point. And also, in one of the weirdest statements that I covered in my video about this, he said that reconciliation must be grounded in truth, which was the first big mistake. That was one giant leap in the wrong direction. Weeks after this, reports came out that the meeting was distinctly formal, that Harry felt more like an official visitor than a son, which would make sense. He was an official visitor to Palace grounds. Harry is now technically an outsider in terms of things like security and scheduling in a meeting and all the logistics that come in with that, of like getting him in to the meeting and having a setting there to meet with King Charles. It's not like Harry's part of this group that moves about on palace grounds and stuff the way Prince William and others do, Princess Anne, who are in and out regularly, perhaps have offices or apartments or things like that on palace grounds and are more regular and staff are used to dealing with and things like that. No. Harry is completely separated from this, so it would have felt more like an official visit. He was penciled in, and there were meetings after Harry, so the meeting could not go long. Smart move on King Charles's team's part. And there was logistics to factor in of getting Harry in to have this meeting. So, I mean, that makes sense. Additionally, Harry is not to be trusted. So it would also make sense that it would feel a little bit more formal. Even if you trust someone and you haven't seen them in years, it can feel a little formal at first. You know, there's ice that needs to be broken. But in Harry's case, I would imagine that's all the more intense and the tone was all the more stiff because of everything Harry has done and how much distrust there is, because Harry always leaks everything, as he proved once again he will do. But after this came out, Harry's spokesperson issued an unnecessary rebuttal that recent reporting of the Duke's view of the tone of the meeting is categorically false. The quotes attributed to him are pure invention. Whether it was Harry's quote or not, it doesn't feel like there was anything off base there. Certainly nothing worth commenting on. In fact, commenting on it makes people believe the initial report all the more, just by virtue of the way Harry and Meghan behave. They also addressed one specific detail from the press version, the claim that Harry and Meghan had been in the photograph given to Charles. Oh yes, Harry wanted to make sure people knew he brought a photograph, a framed photograph as a gift. They clarified that while a framed photo was handed over, it did not contain the Duke and Duchess. Who cares who was in the photo? And what does it really matter anyway? And this is why some people think there's a little bit of a shuffling going on behind the scenes, that Harry's team puts out something that is a little vague, and whatever is printed in the press, then they have the opportunity to say, well, I'm just correcting the narrative. I'm not leaking, I'm just correcting things. But the initial tidbits and vague things that got put out into the press in the first place obviously came from Camp Sussex some way, somehow. But here's the kicker. Harry's team framed the inaccurate reports as being from actors intent on sabotaging any reconciliation between father and son. Why? What would the motive possibly be exactly? King Charles has made it clear that he wants to see his grandchildren. He wants a relationship with Harry that is peaceful and not annoying. He begged Harry to not make his final years stressful the way he did to Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. He essentially begged Harry not to do that. And Harry published that in Spare as if he had been asked something too big of an ask or something ridiculous or unfair. How selfish. King Charles's team surely knows that a peaceful, happy relationship with his family and having his family support close and feeling loved is the best thing for King Charles. Additionally, if King Charles is having a meeting with Harry, he obviously wants it to go smoothly. His team would know better than to try to sabotage anything. If anybody's sabotaging something, the internet thinks it would be Meghan, because she doesn't really want things to get better between Harry and his family, because that would mean eventually really big arguments between Meghan and Harry about the children being allowed to go to the UK. For whatever reason, Meghan has a vendetta against the UK. It's inappropriate, it's wild, and it's way off base and over the top. It's irrational. But Meghan does not want the children to go over there, ever. Ever. And she doesn't want to go over there, ever. And so she is making it difficult for Harry at every turn. And we have seen this pattern play out. We have watched it. First, it was security. And he lost all of that. And it's over. And there's no more fighting he can do on that front. So now it's this. We're going to sabotage every little thing. So people believe it's Meghan putting out these little leaks so that then Harry feels compelled to correct it because he's already really touchy and testy about this stuff. And then he feels like it's being sabotaged, like, because he doesn't get it, that it's Meghan. Then this little back and forth went on for another week and a half. Harry, via his spokesperson, really that's just Harry, explicitly accused unnamed sources of leaking erroneous or damaging accounts to the press, alleging these are motivated to derail any attempt at reconciliation. And by correcting or disputing what was reported, Harry effectively keeps the meeting and its narrative alive in the public discourse, so he's extending his amount of time in the press. And he also reiterated publicly, indirectly, themes that he has long used, like his dirty laundry has often been aired because of leaks or planting by others, rather than by his own volition. So he's trying to frame his corrections as fighting back at the press that is always trying to frame things worse than it is, and the people who have always sabotaged him. It's nothing about him choosing to air his dirty laundry. It's that he has no choice but to correct records. Yeah, right. But here's the thing. Why would, logically, anybody put out stuff that's not 100% accurate in an attempt to be damaging? The things that they said were not damaging anyway, saying that gifts were exchanged, that there was a photograph given to Charles of the children. It could very well have been whoever leaked it, Meghan, said photos of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's children, but it came across like, yeah, just photographs, a family photograph. And they're like, well, we weren't in it. Who cares? None of that's damaging to Harry. Saying that the meeting was kind of formal and he felt like a guest, an official visit, that's not damaging to Harry. He takes it personally because he doesn't like how that sounds. He doesn't want to feel like an outsider. He doesn't want people looking at him like an outsider, even though that's what he chose. But this back and forth and this little nitpicking and volleying of facts and corrections and meh, it's not just petulant and a dumb choice on Harry's part. It's problematic, especially from the king and the palace's perspective. Rather than letting the meeting fade quietly or just be an example of a step in the right direction that went well, and letting that just be the first layer and foundation for the next one that then you can build upon, these public corrections, which we can't take Harry's word for anything, so anything that Harry puts out as a correction isn't fully to be believed until we have corroborating evidence, because Harry is a very unreliable source for anything and everything. He contradicts himself constantly. But anyway, it drives further media attention. It fuels the press to want even more of a scoop and detail and pictures the next time he's coming around. And what drama can we get squeezed out of this next visit? It just creates a frenzy around this subject of King Charles trying to meet with Harry more often, or spend a little bit more time, or open up the bridges, or whatever, however you want to look at it. It's creating it and turning it into more of a spectacle than it needs to be, than it should have been, and more than it would have been if Harry had just kept his mouth shut. Every dispute over tone, phrasing, or detail essentially just encourages more scrutiny and invites more counter-reporting, and it keeps the meeting and the rift alive in the headlines rather than letting it settle in private as King Charles wishes. Which, of course, creates more erosion of trust between Charles, the palace, and Harry and the Sussexes. It also sends mixed signals. For example, Harry denying or correcting press accounts leaves people wondering, well, which version of this is true, as well as why is Harry correcting some things and not others? It's just a whole mess. And this is why no response is the best response, because then, unless there's something super serious, there's no comment. So it doesn't matter if it's true or false, there's no comment unless it's like hugely detrimental or huge big deal. And for the palace, these repeated public pushbacks and narrative control efforts are not only annoying and frustrating for the palace, who try to maintain a balance with their press connections and relations, but it also can make them feel that they've been undermined. That Harry is taking control of the narrative of the situation, which is not fair, because it involves two parties, two camps, and one party should not be having more of a dominant voice than the other. This is the problem with things like the Oprah interview and the Netflix stuff and all Spare and all the stuff that Harry and Meghan have done. It's all so one-sided, one perspective, and that perspective is an unreliable one that has a history of lies and mischaracterizations and fudging of the truth and manipulating the facts and taking things out of context, etc. So it's very unfair for the palace and for King Charles to be in a position where they, in their correct approach of not responding to these things, then have zero impact or control on the narrative, and that's sort of taken from them their ability to just let things be quiet and ignored. Harry's ruining that for them. And at a time where King Charles is, still dealing with ongoing health struggles and is just trying to do his duties and also is managing, his family, Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, also dealing with their own complex situation. And all of these people preferring privacy, it creates a situation where is letting King Charles and Harry have meetings worth all the trouble, fuss, and overexposure that comes with Harry in general? Because it's clear the policies, the pattern that we have seen, this side, the royal side, don't want anything to do with the press. They're not going to engage. They're not going to comment. They don't want to be involved with any extra press nonsense. And Harry just makes everything this huge show and spectacle and crazy frenzy of commentary. At a certain point, I'm sure the conversation will be had amongst the team. Shall we encourage King Charles to not do this again? Because it sacrifices so much privacy and public image, media presence policy gets compromised in this. The king and the royal institution historically aim to suppress or quietly manage private family disputes from public view, and Harry's public commentary and corrections just inject more family matters into the public discourse, which is against King Charles's wishes. He reportedly requests there be no further press commentary from Harry, and each public correction is a violation of that desire. And Harry has proven that he will do it each and every time he meets with King Charles. Harry's alleged strategy, as I've said before, I don't think the Sussexes really have a clear strategy, and if they do, they're very much not disciplined about it. But he seems to oscillate between, I was misrepresented and I need to correct this narrative, even though the initial reports of a photograph or it was kind of formal in a day full of meetings, is not damaging to Harry. It's not a damaging story. He seems to oscillate between wanting to correct this and feeling misrepresented and this assertion that others are trying to sabotage his reconciliation, which is conspiracy theory type territory, paranoia. Both of these and these together can be interpreted as aggressive PR maneuvers against the palace itself, which, as I said, can create a situation where the team comes to Charles to say, It's time to take another break from contacting Harry. You can't keep doing this because each and every time it becomes this huge mess. And it's quite frankly disruptive to not only King Charles's just peace and general, life, but to the overall palace operations and their strategies and their PR presence and media relations. In effect, rather than defaulting to silence, Harry is pushing back and sometimes controlling how the meeting is publicly framed, which, as I said, is a bit of an overstep of boundaries. It's not polite at the end of the day, on top of everything else. Because it also adds pressure to the king and his team to respond or not respond, which can look awkward either way. Whether they deny or dispute, it engages publicity. If they stay silent, observers in the media may see that as acquiescence or weakness or complacency with what Harry's saying or agreeing with what Harry's saying. The ongoing commentary makes it harder to pivot away from the symbolism of the meeting without it being read as coldness or retreat. And obviously it takes a relational strain and an emotional toll from a purely personal perspective. King Charles, in good faith, had this meeting with Harry, and now he has these details publicly challenged, and Harry is saying that people are trying to sabotage and people have mischaracterized and it's damaging when it's not. It must be painful. And also, like I said, make him feel concerned about doing this again and having the same result again. If Charles wants quiet and dignity and privacy, he loses that every time Harry comes around his orbit because of this commentary circulating, and a lot of it is coming from Harry, and the rest of it is coming from someone in the Sussex team. If Harry's intention was to genuinely start earning his family's trust back, he wouldn't be doing any of this nonsense. But if it is, as internet theory suggests, Meghan leaking things behind Harry's back, and then Harry is truly confused where all this is coming from, I can kind of understand him feeling confused or surprised. But what I cannot understand is his complete and utter lack of awareness that continuing to just clap back and engage the press further is the completely wrong approach. As I've said previously, Harry seems to think each time that he's nipping at these stories, he thinks he's nipping back at the press and that he's coming after them. But in reality, in the big picture, it's his family that he's nipping back at. Because he always frames things as it must be someone in his family's orbit's fault. It must be somebody who works for my father. It must be somebody on palace grounds. It must be somebody on my dad's staff or somebody within my dad's orbit who is leaking this stuff. And therefore it pits Harry directly against his family once again. It's him saying, my family has allowed this to happen again because of the way he frames these things. So each time he does this back and forth or this narrative shifting, I refuse to say correcting because, as I said, you cannot count on Harry for the truth or to be correct on anything. His accounts of stuff is almost always wrong or contradicted or changed. So he's an unreliable witness. Harry is. So I would rather call this narrative shifting than narrative correction. But he's pitting himself against his family each and every time he does this. But leave your thoughts in the comments. What do you think Harry's goal is, and where do you think these leaks are coming from? Thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a happy day ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye.